All right. So he talks about total revenue, total costs, and total profit. And just remember, first, total revenue is price times quantity. Price times quantity. Total cost is variable cost plus fixed cost. So total cost is variable cost plus fixed cost. And then profit is total revenue minus total cost. If they don't say anything, it's always economic cost. All right. They have to tell you accounting cost for it to be considered accounting. All right. So economic costs are both explicit and implicit cost. Yes. Total revenue is equal to price times quantity. Total cost is fixed cost plus variable cost. Profit is total revenue minus total cost. And when they don't say anything, you assume it's economic cost. So for profit, it would be total revenue minus explicit plus implicit cost. For accounting profit, it would be total revenue minus only explicit cost. Okay. Now, what are explicit and implicit? Explicit cost is an outlay of money. So if I'm paying for rent, if I'm paying food, if I'm paying wages, those are all examples of explicit costs. Implicit costs do not require an outlay of money. That could be, I own a piece of property that I have my restaurant on. If I sold the property, it would be worth $1 million. That's an implicit cost. It's not like I'm laying out $1 million, but by not using it, I'm not getting that million. Okay. So again, economists take explicit and implicit costs together. Accountants only explicit cost. All right. And then they talked about sunk cost. And a sunk cost is a cost that is committed. So a sunk cost is a cost that is committed that cannot be retrieved. So, maybe I bought tickets to the Ravens game and I lost them. All right, I still want to go to the Ravens game. The sunk cost cannot be retrieved. It's still worth me buying a $50 ticket to the Ravens game if I think I'm going to have a $100 benefit. So there was explicit and implicit and sunk cost. Now, one of the things to realize is explicit costs are still opportunity costs. Because if I'm paying $1,000 to my manager, I could be using that $1,000 somewhere else. So both explicit and implicit costs are opportunity costs. All right, the cost of capital. So say that I had $300,000 and it was in the bank making 10% interest, and I was making $30,000 a year interest. Now I take that $300,000 to start a business. So I'm not making interest anymore. All right. The $30,000 now becomes an implicit cost because I could be making $30,000 if I put it in the bank, but instead I decided to put it in my business. I think in one of the practice problems in chapter 13, there's an example of that in one of the scenarios. Okay, here it is, economic profit versus accounting. Economic profit, total revenue, minus explicit plus implicit cost. Total revenue minus explicit plus implicit cost. And if you did the quiz in chapter 13, there's a couple of examples where you need to know that. So you'll need to know that tomorrow. Accounting profit equals total revenue minus explicit cost. Marginal product, change in total output over change in input. Change in total output over change in input. Just remember, for marginal product, it mirrors marginal cost. So if marginal product is going up, marginal cost is going down. Marginal product is going down, marginal cost is going up. All right, the law of diminishing marginal product says that if you have one fixed resource, eventually you'll have diminishing marginal product. Now, if you have a fixed resource, that means you're in the short run. So the law of diminishing marginal product is only a short run phenomenon. All right, then you have fixed and variable cost. Fixed costs are costs that do not vary with quantity. Rent is a fixed cost. If I sell one pizza or 1,000 pizzas, I'm paying $1,000 a month in rent. Okay. A teacher's salary is a fixed cost. All right. They're paying my salary if I teach 100 kids or 20 kids. Variable cost is a cost that varies with quantity. So sauce in the pizza, because if I sell one pizza, I need very little sauce, but if I sell 1,000, I need a lot more. You could say that for cheese, bread, all products in making food. All right. Now, fixed and variable equals total cost. Fixed and variable equals total cost. All right, average and marginal cost. So average total cost, I could find one of two ways. Total cost over quantity, or average fixed cost plus average variable cost. So total cost over quantity, or average fixed cost plus average variable cost. Average variable cost is, average fixed cost equals fixed cost over quantity. And AFC is always going down. Why? Because fixed cost stays the same. So therefore, as you divide it by a bigger quantity, it decreases. And average variable cost is variable cost over quantity. Right. Marginal cost is change in total cost over change in quantity. All right. He talks about the different curves and there. All right. I want to just try to all right. If you look at like figure 13.7, there are the different curves, right? You have the MC curve going up. Remember, MC crosses AVC at its lowest and ATC at its lowest. When it crosses ATC, that's productively efficient. That's producing at the least cost. All right, so you could have MC, AVC, and then ATC. I don't think that's the graph. This is the graph. If you look here, and I'm guessing this graph will be on this graph over here. D would be marginal cost. C would be average total cost. Average total cost got to be the highest of the two curves. B is average variable cost. You could see as you move outputs increasing, the distance between those are getting smaller, and that's average fixed cost. And then you have the downward sloping A, average fixed cost. Okay. All right. Okay. Then he talks about rising marginal cost. If marginal cost is increasing, the one thing you know is marginal product is decreasing. They're in reverse of each other. But if I looked here, if marginal cost is below the ATC is coming down. When marginal cost goes above the ATC increases. Okay. Now, why is the ATC like U-shaped? Well, one of the reasons is the ATC is made up of AVC and AFC, so average fixed cost and average variable cost. Well, average fixed cost is always getting lower as you add quantity, so therefore it starts pulling the ATC down. But as you increase quantity, variable cost usually goes up, and that pulls the ATC up. And that's how you get the first coming down, then going up into that U shape. Okay. Again, it says MC and ATC. The thing to really note, when MC crosses ATC, like here at point C, that is productively efficient. That's producing at the lowest cost. All right. And that's something that they like to ask you. They asked about point B in the question. That's crossing the AVC, and that will be the lowest variable cost you could have. All right. We talked about the typical cost curves. All right. And then I want to talk about economies of scale. So economies of scale has to occur in the long run. All right. So there are no fixed resources. So you have the first level, output goes up, ATC goes down. Output goes up, ATC goes down. You have the mid-level, output increases, ATC stays the same. Output increases, ATC stays the same. And then the third level, output goes up, ATC goes up. Output goes up, ATC goes up. Now, in the first level, where output goes up and ATC goes down, you have you have specialization. And in the third level, where output goes up and ATC goes up, you have mismanagement. All right, now I'm going to try to fire on the chapter 14, because it might have some graphs worthy of looking at. All right, that was chapter 13. All right, chapter 14 starts out with characteristics of competitor. So thousands and thousands of sellers. Identical product. Easy to enter and exit. No advertising, price taken. Thousands and thousands of sellers, identical product, easy to enter and exit, no advertising, price taken. All right. And then it talks about the profit maximizer, and that's where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. Now, remember, if marginal revenue is greater than marginal cost, we'll always produce another product. Why? Because that's like the profit of your last product. So if the marginal revenue is 8, and the marginal cost is 6, that means in the last product, I made $2. So I'm going to produce another one until marginal revenue is either equal to marginal cost or marginal cost exceeds. I'll never produce when marginal cost exceeds marginal revenue. Okay? And then just remember, total revenue is price times quantity. And the sweet spot to determine how much quantity you're going to produce is where MR equals MC. I will guarantee you, Mr. Dog, remember, in perfect competition, marginal revenue equals demand equals average revenue equals price. I'm going to say that again. Marginal revenue equals demand equals average revenue equals price. Okay? That will get you 2 answers probably on tomorrow's quiz. All right? And remember, the marginal revenue is how much money you're making on the last unit. And the marginal cost is the cost of the last unit. So if you take the revenue minus the cost, you get the profit of the last unit. Okay. So if we look over here, all right, and we talked about this today in class, remember, MC is the supply curve above the AVC. Okay, we didn't call this an AVC, but it is above the AVC. Why? Because below the AVC, we're shutting down. Okay, so it is the supply curve above the AVC. Between ATC and AVC is AFC. All right. Okay. Let's talk about the shutdown rule. You shut down in the short run. All right. So the shutdown is in the short run. If price is below AVC. So you shut down if price is below AVC. Let me see. Do I have a graph where they show price below AVC? Of course. Well, if you looked here, if price is below P1, we're going to shut down. And even on P1, we're going to shut down because it's equal. All right. So the shutdown rule is if price is below AVC. You stay in business, like here in this graph, you'd stay in business at P2 and P3 because the price is above AVC. You're losing money in the short run because you're still below ATC. You're losing money in the short run, but you're paying for some of your fixed cost. Okay. Here he talks about sunk cost. And that again is cost that is already committed to and cannot be recovered. Cost that is already committed to and cannot be recovered. Okay. In the long run, we enter if firms are making money. And oh, someone's in the chat. Let me get there. Spiro, what are you asking? What do you mean by sunk cost? Sunk cost, like, I've paid the rent for a year. So it's a sunk cost. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, I paid the rent. I have that $1,000, so maybe I'll stay open for lunch, long as it pays my variable cost, because I'm paying for rent anyhow. Or I want to go to the Ravens game. My marginal benefit's 100. I paid 50 for a ticket. I lost the ticket. It's still worth going to the game because I can't get back what I lost on that ticket, and I'd still benefit from going. Those are 2 examples of sunk cost. Okay. All right. So we're going to enter anytime there's a We're going to enter anytime there's a profit, and we're going to exit anytime there's a loss. Now realize, in the long run, there's no fixed cost. So when I exit, I am not paying fixed cost or variable cost. I'm out cost free. So in the long run, when I exit, I don't pay any cost. In the short run, when I shut down, I have to pay fixed cost. Okay. Let me just check this to see, do I have a side-by-side graph? Nah, not a good one. Okay. All right, hold it. Let me get back. All right. So, uh-oh. Are you guys still with me? All right. All right. So remember, and I'll graph one. It's going to be hard, but and I'm not going to label things because they're really hard to graph with this pen. So here is the industry, just supply and demand. All right. Remember, firms are price takers. So we're going to have Mr. Darp, and that's going to be Mr. Darp. All right. The key is where MC equals MR. That's going to be here. Okay. Now, the ATC is above the price, so I'm losing money. And I'm in the short run. Why the short run? Because I can't lose or make money in the long run. All right. All right. Now, what's going to happen? Firms are going to want to leave and exit. And in the long run, again, when you exit, you have no cost. Your lease is up. You're not buying any more food. You're done. So firms are going to exit. We're going to get supply shifting to the left. We'll have a new price. This is probably not, yeah, that line is not. And we'll get to zero economic profit. Okay. All right. That is basically the highlights of the chapter. If you have any questions, let's start. If anyone has any questions on practice quiz 14, because I have that up. And then if you have any questions on practice quiz 13, I'll look at those. So anything on practice quiz 14 first, or any other questions on perfect competition? You could turn on your mic, or you could just put it in the chat. Now, in the short run, you could shut down if the price is below AVC, Dev, but you still got to pay fixed cost. In the long run, you could leave, we call it exit, and you have no cost. Does that make sense, Dev?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Then we want to look at 10. If the market price is higher than P4, but less than, all right, so P4 is here. I take that as Mr. Darp to where it hits MC. I'm right at break even, right? I'm at zero economic profit. So if the market price is higher than P4, but less than P6, so the market price is going to be above the ATC, I'm making profits. All right. So I'm making profits in the short run. That's going to be A, because if you're making profits, you can't be in the long run, because in the long run, it's going to be zero economic profit. So the answer is A as in alpha. Does that make sense to you, Austin? Okay. Now, for the rest of you guys, I'd be thinking they could ask me about P2 and P3. Well, that's above the AVC. So I'm losing money, but I'll stay in business. All right. Then they could ask me about P1, and that would be shut down. So that's what I'd look at this graph. What are the other questions they possibly could ask? All right. Anything else on practice quiz 14? Just put in a question number or question 9. Oh, I gotta scroll that down. Let's see, could I get this now? Question. All right, refer to table 14.5. If the firm find, okay, so Spiro, it's saying the marginal cost is 5. The marginal revenue is 9, right? 9 minus 0 is 9. 18 minus 9 is 9. 27 minus 18. So if the marginal revenue is 9 and the marginal cost is 5, I'm making $4. I'm going to produce more. So the answer is increase production, B as in broccoli, to maximize profits. Does that make sense to you, Spiro? Okay. You got to first find, if they're giving you the marginal cost, you got to first find the marginal revenue. Do you understand how to do that? All right, the marginal revenue is change in total revenue over change in input. So look at the first one on the table. The change in total revenue is 9 minus 0 is 9 over the change in input. You went from 0 to 1, so it's $9. For the second one, the change is from 18 to 9. So it's 9, again, over the change in input. 2 from 1 is 1, so it's 9. All right, do you understand now how to get the marginal revenue? Okay, now, if your marginal revenue is 9 and it's costing you 5, would you want to produce more units? You're bringing in 9, it's costing you 5. The answer should be yes, you do. And therefore, you're going to increase production because every time you produce another unit, you make money, $9 compared to 5. Does that make sense to you now? Okay. All right. Any other questions on chapter 14? Seeing, did I have any questions? Okay. I just say, remember Mr. Dog. All right, let me pull up chapter 13 and see, does anyone have any questions on that? Okay, any questions on chapter 13? All right, if none of you have questions on chapter 13, I just want to quickly go over something. So look at scenario 13.5. She used to make 80,000. Now she opened up her own business. So that's an implicit cost. She used a $20,000 certificate of deposit that was earning interest of 500. That 500 is an implicit cost. So her implicit costs are 80,500. Do they ask that? Yes, they do. All right. But I also, while I'm here, I'm going to practice her explicit cost too, in case they ask me that on the real test. Her explicit cost is 15,000 because you're going to pay that in cash. I can't even read what that says. All right, 3,000 here. You're going to pay that in cash. 1,000, you're going to pay that in cash. 1,200 and 35,000. Okay. When you add all those up, her explicit costs are 55,200. Okay. So if they ask you for her economic cost, you add these two up. If they just ask you for the accounting cost, you just take the 55,200. Now there's another one. There's Wanda. I would do the same thing. Her per cost per glass is, if you add up all her little penny, 2 penny, that's 8 cents an explicit cost because she's paying a penny, and then 2 for sugar is 3, 3 for lemons is 6, 2 is 8. So that's an explicit cost. And then the opportunity cost is 10 cents. That would be an implicit cost. Okay. All right. And then the ones that have charts. Oh, I know. I want one. I want to find one. There's one with the chart in it that you guys should look at. Like this one, 1310, I would fill out the whole chart. Because they could ask you anything. And the way to find the fixed cost, right? Fixed, fixed and variable equal total. So if the total cost is 38, the fixed is 25, and you just could write 25 all the way down because it's 25 for every one of them. And you could pretty much figure out all of them. And let's just do the second one is 53, the total cost, because it's 25 plus 28 is 53. Now, say I wanted to find the marginal cost for the second one. It's 53 minus 38, and that would be 15. Okay. And any questions again on any of the questions or anything in chapter 13? Okay. All right, there's something in the chat. The whole roll of what? You could fill out the chart, Spiro. If fixed costs plus variable costs plus total cost, you could figure out everything in the chart. You just put 25 straight down for all of them, and you should be able to do it. If there's something you can't figure out, email me and I'll get you an answer. And then average fixed cost would be fixed cost divided by quantity. Average variable cost would be variable cost by quantity, and so on. Any other questions? The only reason I'm telling you, Spiro, for you to do it is because if you just copy down what I do, you won't understand how to figure it out. And part of it is understanding how to figure it out. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. I put the video of the practice quiz, me going over everything in this practice quiz.